The subject is group gestation in early grouping. I share my presentation. So at the beginning, I'll refer to the difference between these two systems, individual and group. And then I will refer to each of these two systems, group and individual. And then in the presentation, what's most important is the early group systems and the initiatives we have, the main ones we're working on at the beginning in Brazil, but they have been implemented in other countries, in other production system. And then I will show you some photos of transition cases of group gestation. I believe that everyone understands the main differences when it comes to these two systems, both individual and collective system, and probably, well, you know that they are very different. And this slide shows you the advantages of individual cage and group cage or stall. I believe that many would like to choose to work as in a group, in a collective, and because it provides different advantages such as the control, food, and avoiding fights. On the other hand, we have some disadvantages. For example, those who have to do with the animal welfare. When there are high incidence of stereotypes, some behavior and some other behaviors that are expensive, well-being is the improper. And on the other hand, the group, there's a lot of interesting things we are looking at, trying to work with systems that are better for animals. But on the other hand, we have several disadvantages. And one of them, the main one, is the challenges related to the competence for being fed. When they are in the same barn, they all have to eat. And in many opportunities, there are big challenges, many difficulties when having them in just one single barn to receive food properly. I will refer to this later. Individual accommodation stress, it is important that the available space for the female is small. Stalls, generally speaking, had 2 meters, which results in 1 meter 32 centimeters square meters. And we see one board with just during all gestation. This shows will be 80% of the time in this improper condition and a stressing condition. Then we need little by little to change this production system. And you have seen that the chapter, one of the chapters of the OMSA has this as a preparation, the behavior stereotypes. Former speakers have referred to it pretty well. It's one of the main problems you can look at and analyze when it comes to the production of sows. And you can see this in the slide clearly when the frequency or the incidence of the stereotypes in accommodation is higher than what can happen in parks. So in collective accommodation is a very improper condition for animal well-being or welfare. One of the important things here, and I believe is one of the most important, is that they prefer to live as a group, pigs, all of them, regardless of age. And here, there's an article of the OMSA 7.30.12 that gills and bachelors, like other animals, are social animals preferring to live in group. Therefore, it is preferable to have them as a group. And this is our main goal when we talked about gestation, particularly in stalls, but there is a need to change them little by little in our production systems. It is important to make some classifications of the type of females. One of them, well, according to the handling or management, it might be static when there is a group of females in a barn, and this group is kept or maintained until the gestation period, having new individuals in the group. And then we have a dynamic management group where all in the same barn or park can have females entering and going out all the time. It is known that static groups are better groups for the females than the percentage of female with some type of injuries. It is always with these static groups. Dynamic groups are possible when we work with an electronic feeding system. Those which are not electronic is not usually found in practice. And it can also be divided or classified according to transfer, pre-implantation of embryos that we will call early, and then post-implementation of embryos, so late grouping. Gestational loss around a gestation cycle, where we have here ovulation from the very beginning until farrowing, and most important embryo losses happen before 18 gestation days and mainly between days 12 and 18. That will be the most critical period. Then what is it recommended? To make transfers or have this gestation group just after gestation and after days 24, 28 on. And in this way, these movements after fertilization are the most critical ones. So here we cannot move the females because there will be several losses if we move them at that time. I will refer to the early grouping system. Imagine that this is the gestation period for weeks divided into weeks. We will have a little bit more of 16 weeks. At the very beginning, there's the service, and at the end, the farrowing. And here, the point where we do the grouping and females stay there in the barn for life. And this is what we call group accommodation after series early grouping system. It is preferable that animals are housed individually after the artificial insemination and that housed as a group. In this case, in this barn, we are here in stalls. They are being inseminated. After insemination, after last insemination, some days after, animals were transferred for systems of parks, such as that one that's in Brazil, working with our system, and it mixes females until 3 or 5 days after the service, then after the last insemination. I will show you two research conducted in Brazil with production system, and you can see that results are good. Sometimes they can be better depending on the barn or the farm handling. I have compared farms where collective accommodation was with 1 day post-service, post-insemination, or with 32 days of gestation, and the results are as follows. Group accommodation after service, just 1 day, did not affect the number of piglets born, neither the rate of farrowing. So the research in Brazilian farms where 5 days of gestation, 42 days of gestation with female staying during the whole cycle in stalls, the conclusion is that they from the day 3 to 5 after service in this group, there was no impact on the reproductive parameters, and some results show improvement compared to the system of being housed after 42 days. So it is possible to work with that system. Results are good and they are undergoing under evolution. We are learning and controlling females better, and results are getting better as well. Some group gestation alternatives. Let me show you some of the main ones. The first one is that this is a conventional system where females stay in barns as simple as possible. The second one, we call it mini box. I will refer to it later. And then the electronic system, I have shared in two different moments because in practice, not the same. We will refer to the first one, conventional systems. Barns with males and females. Can they also receive liquid food or liquid or food on the floor? Barns with 20, 22 females, that would be the simplest system. And in many Brazilian barns started to work with this system again after working with stall systems. They started again to work with conventional systems for housing. There is a mini box system here that each sow has a space for food, and you can use the feed here and place it in the same amount for all the sows. And you can see this picture, this older sows, and that's in those gills in the same barn. That's the first one. So the farrowing order should be close, but in some situation, in some barns, and that's a reality, on the mini box size, 40 to 45 centimeters and a depth of 50 centimeters until the animal's back. It is important to say that we do not refer to gestation space when we talk about mini box. That is not considered as a useful space for sows. Another system here, mini box, park, until 33 sows with very pretty good results, and the electronic food system. This would be the first one we thought to use, where the sow enters a machine and piece of equipment and receives food according to the food plan implemented. They eat their own feed without the interference of any other animal. That's also a workable and functional system. And there is another one which is called self-capture. It comes from a more simple inspiration from a stall where the sow enters and leaves whenever she wants, and just having an electronic system reading the chip embedded in the sow, so she can eat her own feed according to the food plan. It is also a very functional plan, and many barns are going on that way. And these electronic systems are systems that make it possible to work with dynamic groups where the sow go and come several times during the gestation cycle. And in these cases, there is a complete control of the food volume each sow can eat particularly. It allows several advantages, for example, economic one, as well as productivity, to provide individual attention for each sow. It is also important to refer to the main failures in group systems, and we have to share this data because it is important to work one by one, and the barns in the collective transfer to lead them for collective grouping. In many possibilities, there are productivity problems because in many opportunities, they cannot make it when it comes to manage supervision and individual care for the sows, lack of corrective measures for animals presenting problems. There's a big challenge there. People who are working with animals, groups, they have to learn how to work in a different way. It's not the same way working with in stalls as it is in barns. Empty stalls, size, farrowing, body condition. I won't refer to each in detail. But it is important that we as farmers, technicians, consultants can look for suggestions in field situations so that results do not get worsened. Swine mix is a reality. When there are sometimes groups in the barns and that end up in intensive commercial systems. Of course, the idea is to reduce at its best the regrouping situation of animals. And in many opportunities, we have negative impact in the animal welfare and those which present injuries. So we need to look for indicators for animal welfare in barns so that we can also find solutions for that problem. And in this slide, you can see some of the strategies to reduce lesions: no slippery floor, feed animals before mixing them, place feed on the floor, avoid to add a small number of animals into a big group of animals, mix animals. Some of the things I will show you, for example, here visual barriers, refugee areas to protect south rams from others. You can see here that there are no high visual barriers, but then it is possible to have opportunities to avoid escaping from potential injuries. Different ways, and both can be good to reduce the possible problems with animal mix when gestation groups are formed. It is important to refer to individual barns or pigs. We cannot forget them. And it is important to generate a visual context with the other pigs because those individual barns can be in contact. Enough space so they can move freely. The conditions or transition for group gestation, I want to show you a pictures from Brazil where you can see gestation for individual stalls or dams, and then you can see dams and productions in stalls. And then the barn starts to be destroyed and destroyed, and once more it is restructured in a way that in the end we can have one more condition for production with these sows in the barn. It is a very important tip for farmers because there is a great investment of resources, and that can be done overnight. In Brazil, many barns are implementing this transformation. Final consideration first, but those housed individually have welfare problems. I think this is pretty clear for us. Pigs are social animals and they prefer to live in groups. Collective system pre-implantation meet the requirements of buyers, and particularly those who have public commitments, those who have to export to other countries, or if they have too many customers, seeking more information on production systems and collective systems in the pre-implementation systems are systems with requirements. Productive results in grouping, in early grouping, are acceptable, and under evolution, there are also some negative experiences here, but generally speaking, when you receive or when proper support is received, that problem can be solved. Many companies with 100 group projects being implemented in Brazil, and the transition for barns is a sustainable path. And this is what we are looking for. Thank you very much, particularly for the members of the advocacy group from the OMSA chapter 7.13. We've been working with this. Here is a friend of mine from Chile, Leopoldo, and other members of the group. And in the end, I thank everyone. I'm open for questions. There's a website if you want to download some book chapters whom I have written and some other colleagues have written. They are free for you there in that webpage, clealondrias.com.br. Thank you very much. Yes, we do. Okay. Just one comment. Economically speaking, is it feasible to use group systems when it comes to facilities and reproductive parameters? I am not clear whether this is a comment or question. I believe it is a question. Is it feasible to use group systems when it comes to facilities and reproductive systems? Absolutely, yes. I have said this all the time. It is possible, but sometimes we need to manage that during transition. But the answer is a yes. Thank you very much. And now, just the last one. Is there any difference regarding neonatal mortality with collective farrowing and individual farrowing? It's a pretty good question. And you can look at it in from different views. In field test, results are not really clear when they are in transition groups, but after some work, data are better and better, and we are going to have better results. I think we can conclude with this. We had more questions, but we will submit them through email. Thank you very much.